A major Supreme Court decision has once again placed the Second Amendment at the center of national debate, and across the country, law enforcement agencies, state officials, gun owners, and legal experts are all trying to understand what happens next. The ruling is already triggering strong reactions from multiple states, with some officials welcoming the decision while others warn it could reshape the future of firearm regulation in America for years to come. If you want real updates explained clearly and simply, make sure you subscribe right now because this legal battle is moving fast and the next wave of lawsuits and state responses could change everything. The reason this ruling is getting so much attention is because the Supreme Court reinforced a stricter constitutional standard for evaluating gun laws under the Second Amendment. Instead of allowing broad balancing tests where governments argue public safety alone justifies restrictions, courts are now expected to look more closely at whether modern firearm laws are consistent with America's historical traditions and constitutional protections. That change may sound technical, but its effects are enormous. For years, many gun regulations survived legal challenges because courts gave lawmakers wide flexibility to argue that restrictions were necessary for safety. Under the newer constitutional framework, judges are being told that constitutional rights cannot simply be reduced whenever governments believe restrictions might help policy goals. Instead, courts must carefully examine whether those laws fit within the historical understanding of the Second Amendment. As soon as this decision came down, reactions spread quickly across the United States. Gun rights organizations celebrated the ruling as a major constitutional victory. Supporters say the court is finally treating the Second Amendment with the same seriousness as other constitutional rights like free speech and religious liberty. They argue that Americans should not have to prove a special reason to exercise a constitutional right and that governments should not have unlimited power to create burdens around firearm ownership and public carry. On the other side, gun control advocates warn that the ruling could make it harder for states to defend certain restrictions in court. Some officials expressed concern that long-standing regulations may now face new legal challenges, especially in states with strict firearm laws. And that is where law enforcement agencies are now paying very close attention. Police departments and state agencies across the country are reviewing how the ruling could affect permit systems, public carry policies, licensing procedures, and enforcement standards. In some jurisdictions, officials are already discussing whether existing rules need to be rewritten to avoid future constitutional challenges. This does not mean all gun laws disappeared overnight. That is one of the biggest misconceptions spreading online right now. The Supreme Court did not suddenly erase every firearm restriction in America. Background checks still exist. Federal firearm laws still exist. States still regulate weapons in many different ways. But what changed is the legal framework courts use when reviewing those laws. And that difference matters enormously. Under this stricter constitutional approach, governments may now face a much harder task when trying to defend regulations that place heavy burdens on ordinary citizens attempting to exercise Second Amendment rights. One of the biggest areas being discussed involves concealed carry laws. In the past, several states operated under systems where applicants had to prove a special need or proper cause before receiving permission to carry a firearm publicly. Critics argued these systems turned constitutional rights into privileges controlled by government officials. Recent Supreme Court decisions signaled strong opposition to those discretionary systems, pushing states toward more objective standards. Now many legal analysts believe future cases could continue testing other firearm regulations using the same constitutional logic. That possibility has lawmakers across the country preparing for more courtroom battles. Some states are expected to defend existing restrictions aggressively, arguing their laws are still constitutional even under stricter review. Others may attempt to revise their firearm policies before courts force changes through litigation. Meanwhile, gun rights organizations are already preparing new lawsuits targeting regulations they believe cannot survive under the court's newer interpretation of the Second Amendment. This is why the ruling is being described by many experts as more than just one isolated decision. Instead, it may represent the beginning of a larger constitutional shift that will continue unfolding over the next several years. And the impact could vary dramatically from state to state. States with already permissive gun laws may see relatively small changes because their systems already align more closely with the court's direction. But states with stricter regulations could face growing legal pressure as more challenges move through federal courts. For ordinary citizens, this creates confusion and uncertainty. People are asking questions like, can states still require permits? Can waiting periods survive constitutional review? What happens to licensing systems? Will more carry restrictions be challenged next? The truth is that many of these questions are still being fought out in court right now. The legal process takes time, and different judges may reach different conclusions until higher courts provide clearer guidance. That means the future of American gun law is still evolving. At the same time, political reactions are becoming increasingly intense. Some lawmakers are calling for stronger protections of gun rights, arguing that constitutional freedoms should not depend on government discretion. Others insist states must retain authority to regulate firearms in the interest of public safety. This debate is not slowing down anytime soon. In fact, many experts believe the country is entering a new era of Second Amendment litigation where nearly every major firearm restriction could eventually face constitutional scrutiny under the newer framework established by the Supreme Court. And because of that, both supporters and opponents of expanded gun rights are preparing for a long legal fight. For law enforcement, the challenge is balancing compliance with constitutional rulings while continuing to enforce existing laws that remain valid. Agencies must now monitor rapidly changing legal interpretations while ensuring officers understand what regulations are still enforceable and which rules may become vulnerable to challenge. That is why some departments are reportedly reviewing policies internally and consulting legal experts to avoid confusion as additional cases move through the system. Social media has made the situation even more chaotic. Viral videos and dramatic headlines are spreading claims that all gun laws have been overturned nationwide or that every state is now under the exact same legal standard. Those claims are misleading. What actually happened is more complex. The Supreme Court strengthened constitutional scrutiny surrounding firearm laws, but individual regulations still have to be challenged and reviewed case by case. Some laws may survive. Others may not. And many legal battles are only beginning. That is why staying informed matters now more than ever. Whether someone strongly supports gun rights or supports stricter firearm regulation, the reality is that this constitutional debate is reshaping the legal landscape across America. And every new court decision could influence what happens next. So while this ruling did not instantly rewrite every gun law in the country, it absolutely changed the direction of the national conversation. Courts are now under greater pressure to treat Second Amendment rights as fundamental constitutional protections rather than flexible policy questions. That shift alone could affect firearm litigation, state laws, and constitutional debates for many years to come. If you want continued updates on the latest Supreme Court developments, state reactions, and major Second Amendment cases happening across America, subscribe right now and stay informed because this story is far from over.